Hello, I'm here with my monthly look at the previews catalog from Diamond Distribution. This is from September 2024, and we'll get into it. So, first one, I guess this one isn't from Diamond. It's from, I believe, Lunar. That's who DC goes through. Let's see what we got here from DC. It wasn't too much, not surprisingly. So, we are awash in these facsimile issues. Marvel and DC, and now even Archie, keep pumping them out. I think it's, if somebody wants to read Crisis on Infinite Earths number 8 for some reason, then I guess it's a cool option to have. I'll admit to buying one. I bought New Mutants 98 facsimile edition just because I wanted to complete my New Mutants run and wouldn't pay what that issue goes for. But this I thought was a little more interesting. Limited Collector's Edition number 37 facsimile edition. And this is a big oversized... does it say how big it is? It doesn't. But it's 64 pages. It's like the old Treasury editions. I want to say they put one of these out recently. But of course I'm blanking because I didn't buy it. Anyway, the main reason for me to be interested in this, covers by Jim Aparo. I love that cover. And it looks like it's just a random assortment of Batman stories and whatever random crap they would have had in something like this. $14.99. I probably will not buy this thing, but I did think it was interesting. These are the sorts of things I would like to see reprinted. These random Treasury editions. The stuff that's a little harder to find. I feel like if you want Crisis on Infinite Earths number 8, you can find that pretty easily. Not to mention the whole thing's been collected in a book 10 times, so don't really see the point of some of these, but the odder things I think are a great idea. Also, DC is doing this new push. I mean, they have these compact things they're doing, and this one, Kingdom Come, is the one they have for this month, which makes a lot of sense. But they're also doing these DC Finest, which are bigger. They're 600 something pages, just big, thick paperbacks, $40, which is pretty pricey. And so even though they've done some interesting stuff, I haven't really paid too much attention to that first wave. But here's the second wave, and I'm interested in this. Aquaman, the King of Atlantis. Art by Ramona Fradon, Nick Cardy, and others. This is really when he gets relaunched as a Silver Age character. Aquaman never actually went away, but they sort of spruced him up, made him the King of Atlantis, the version of Aquaman we're all familiar with. This one here, DC Finest Supergirl, the Girl of Steel, really takes from her first appearance on 1959 to 1962, basically Supergirl's appearances. Written by Otto Bender and Jerry Siegel, art by Al Plastino, Jim Mooney, and Kurt Swan. So those are all classic Superman creators. I don't know if, I believe Weisinger was still the editor at that point, so there's a good chance these would be more interesting than you would think. I have read the first appearance of Supergirl. It was one of the things reprinted around the turn of the century. Can't say it left much of an impression on me, but there you go. One other thing, Stormwatch, The Road to Authority Compendium. I liked Stormwatch a lot when it came out. That would have been the probably mid to late 90s. Very early Warren Ellis, as far as being a name that people started to notice. A lot of the art was by Tom Rainey. Eventually Brian Hitch comes in. But the Tom Rainey, Warren Ellis, the last, 37 through 50, that run of Stormwatch, And then they had a volume 2 that went for 11 issues. And then out of that, they spun The Authority. I know The Authority is much more popular and probably much more well regarded. I just never really connected with it personally. I dropped out pretty fast. But I had affection for these Stormwatch comics, and I'm sure a big part of it is that it was just a really dire time for all mainstream comics. And so anything that seemed even remotely fresh was going to make you sit up and notice. So anyway, get all that stuff together in one spot. $60, which is a lot, but it is a big ass compendium. Thought I'd mention it. I know Warren Ellis is not one. I mean, he's never been a guy I've been a huge fan of, to be honest. So when his reputation took a massive hit, I can't say it really affected me one way or the other, but totally understand if someone's not interested in reading any of his work. For Marvel, there wasn't really anything, but I'll go ahead and say this one thing just because. Web of Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1. Mostly, I'm interested. I'm not going to buy this, but I'm interested in this because Web of Spider-Man really seemed like the Spider-Man title that did not have a distinct identity. Maybe I'm mistaken about that. It started kind of just before my time, so I don't know what the hook was when it launched, but as far as I could tell, the hook was just, here's another Spider-Man comic. But you can see within, 30-something issues, look at the list of people that worked on this. I mean, this comic had no continuity, it just didn't have anything to say it had any sort of identity at all. But, of course, there's also some really talented people that worked on these things here. And some solid Marvel 80s talent. But, yeah, mostly just struck me as an odd omnibus. I wondered who out there was clamoring for a Web of Spider-Man omnibus. Yeah. Guess I'll also throw this out here. I'm not a big... I keep sounding so negative. I'm not a big this guy. I'm not a big that guy. But I'm not a big Tim Sale guy. I like his work, but I never really understood the adoration that he engendered. But this, I wasn't even familiar with this comic. Wolverine Gambit Victims, which must have been a miniseries. Yeah, it was a miniseries. I'm assuming from the 90s. Written by Jeff Loeb, drawn by Tim Sale. I know they did a bunch of stuff together. This must have been a pretty early collaboration, so I thought I'd mention it. Tim Sale was a solid artist for sure, but I can't say he made a lot of comics I particularly care about. But that was worth mentioning. Getting into the meat, the previews. From Image. A very strange book for Image to be publishing. Vaughn Bodet's Complete Deadbone Erotica Omnibus. It's big, 9x12, 272 pages. So I don't know what the deal is with this. I'm guessing Mark Bodet, his son, maybe has the say on who can publish this stuff, and he's doing it through Image. But yeah, not the sort of thing they usually publish, though they did publish an underground comic not too long ago. So I don't know what the hell's going on there. I don't know if that's Jim Valentino or somebody else. I'd be curious to find out about that. A comic I have not read gets a trade. Blood Squad 7 Volume 1 Perilous Relaunch. This is a Joe Casey comic. Joe Casey is a mainstream writer that I kept up with for many, many years. And then, I just felt like I wasn't really getting much out of it. And so eventually I sort of dropped off. But anyway, it's a cheap trade. Maybe I'll give him a shake just for old time's sake. Also thought I'd mention Anzuelo hardcover by Emma Rios. 304 pages. A hefty hardcover. Emma Rios, where she drew, was it Pretty Deadly that she drew? I'm not really familiar with her work, to be totally honest. I mean, I've seen it. I have a friend who's a big fan. But anyway, Curious, a nice big graphic novel. Last Man, Volume 6 by Balak, Sanlaville, and Bastien Vives. This is the conclusion of this series. I had read the first half of the series when First Second attempted to reprint it and crashed on the rocks. Kirkman kind of took this over and put them out in nice big books. So I'll be interested to give this a read all the way through, see how I like it. I really enjoyed the first 3 volumes, so I would definitely recommend it for that at least. Pointing this out here, just for anyone who might be interested, Spawn Vault Edition, Volume 3, Greg Capullo. I remember when Greg Capullo took over Spawn, I was pretty stunned. I was very familiar with his work at Marvel. He drew Quasar when I was reading it. And he was just the last guy I would have expected to take over from McFarlane on anything. Didn't feel like his style was necessarily compatible. But I was wrong. He really was a pretty good Todd clone and has gone on to have a pretty successful career. I have zero interest in this book, but the reason I'm mentioning it is because these Vault editions, the first 2 are severely out of print and go for big bucks. So if anyone out there is a Spawn fan, a Greg Capullo fan, an Artist Edition fan, you know, if that seems up your alley, I would go for it, because you will pay through the nose later if you have second thoughts. Transformers Volume 2 by Daniel Warren Johnson. I haven't read the first volume, so I can't speak about its quality. He did just win Best Writer Artist. Transformers won Best Series at the Eisners. I mean, who gives a shit about the Eisners? But, you know, and I've heard that this is selling like hotcakes. So I thought I'd mention it. Yeah. Haven't read any of the Inner John universe stuff. But I don't have any hostility towards it. Just haven't read any of it. What's next from Image here? There are a few more things. Let's see. Free Agents, number 5, written by Kurt Busiek and Fabian Nicieza. Art is by Stephen Mooney. I read the first issue of this. Have to admit, it didn't make much of an impression on me. But I think I might stick with it for a little bit just to see where it goes. I really like Kurt Busiek. For the kind of comics he does, I think he's one of the best of just kind of making entertaining, solid superhero comics. So yeah, I try to support whatever I can of his and see how it goes. Precious Metal number 6, written by Darcy Van Polgeest. Art by Ian Bertram. The Bertram art is the reason people are checking this thing out. It is a prequel to Little Bird, series from a few years ago. I read the first 2 issues of this. I couldn't tell you a damn thing about it. But I will say that the art's pretty spectacular. And it's not that the writing's bad necessarily. It just, I can't say that it made much of an impression on me. And the last thing from Image, Savage Dragon 275. Yeah, what else can you say? It's still going, still there. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I don't think anybody would have guessed that it would have made it this far. Spawn is already on 360, and I know they made a big deal when it hit 300, but to me, Spawn is like Spider-Man or something. Who cares? You know, I see who's writing. When I look at who's doing this stuff, I mean, I do recognize Brett Booth's name, but this is just whatever they're churning out at the widget factory. Savage Dragon, whether you like it or not, you have to admit, is one guy's comic, one vision. And I like that. And I would say has some real stretches of being a pretty entertaining comic. From Dark Horse, The Complete ElfQuest Future Quest by Wendy Penny and Richard Penny. I don't know anything about this. Looks like it's got a cosmic angle to it, which seems a little strange to me, but I don't know a ton about ElfQuest. I've only read the first big storyline. Anyway, I thought I would mention it. 736 page softcover, so it'll be a brick of a book. Den Volume 5, The Price of Memories. They are really far behind on these, even though they keep soliciting new ones. Not really sure what the deal is there. Every one of these that I've seen so far have been completely gorgeous. They're beautiful books. I feel like Corbin is one of those people you either respond to his art immediately or you don't. And if you don't, there isn't really much to convince you to check it out, because really it is, do you like the way it looks? If you do, then it's a treat. If you don't, and you don't care, there isn't much else to hang your hat on. But this is a very nicely presented version of Corbin's work. The Marvel Comics Covers of Jack Kirby, Volume 1, 1961 to 1964. So this is just an art book. It's hardcover, 8x12, which is nice and big. Only 184 pages. $50, which seems a little extreme to me. Yeah, I don't know. I could see this being something that would be really cool to look at, but I don't know that it's something I would need to own. And the fact that there's a volume 1, there'd be at least another volume for the second half of the 60s. And would there be another one for his run in the 70s? I don't know. Be a cool set to have. I just don't know if it'd be a set that's worth $150. Personally. And then also Usagi Yojimbo, The Crow. I know that they number these internally. If you look inside, it'll tell you what volume it is of Usagi, but I really wish they were still numbering these books. I understand why they don't do it. It's intimidating to people to see, volume 38 on something. I get it, but for those of us who have been buying these things for a long time, it would be nice to know where we're at. But that minor complaint aside, love Usagi Yojimbo, love Sakai's work. It's amazing that he's still going. Also from IDW, Best of DC War Artist Edition. So this is a new edition. This has been reprinted before. I don't think there's anything new in this. I will say this is the sort of artist edition that I think people just kind of, some people got it, some didn't. No one really, this is one of the best ones, I think. And that's not something you would expect. But some of the artists represented: Russ Heath, Jack Kirby, Joe Kubert, John Severin, Alex Toth. I mean, that's a murderer's row of talent. The DC War Comics had some really great people working on them. Yeah, so just can't recommend it enough. I remember I got it. I think I got a copy on eBay for like $50, really cheap for an artist edition. And I basically got it because it was a deal, and the names that were in it are people I liked. But when I actually saw the book, I was stunned how great it was. So anyway, I recommend it, but obviously these artist editions cost a pretty penny. So I could totally understand not pulling the trigger unless it's a must-have for you. So this comic, or this company, Alien Books, I usually ignore that they're who publish Valiant now. And I guess I ignored them to my own detriment, because here I have I, Dragon, book 2 of 3. And this is a Juan Jimenez series. Juan Jimenez is known for working on the Metabarons with Alejandro Jodorowsky. Really fantastic European cartoonist. Yeah, these are just 56 pages, but only $13, and so kind of equivalent to a Cinebook book, and it's 8.5 by 11. Nice presentation. So yeah, I may try to track down volume 1 of this and get volume 2 and 3. Don't know anything about it. For all I know, the story's shit, but I can pretty much guarantee that the art will look amazing. Jimenez is pretty fantastic. But yeah, no matter how long I look at these previews, things still get by me. From Alaxis Press, The Obscure Cities, The Return of Captain Nemo hardcover, written by Benoit Peters, art by Francois Schuiten, I believe how you say his name. Peters and Schuiten, I apologize. I'm doubting myself. I think I'm butchering it. IDW, through the Library of American Comics imprint, or their Euro Comics imprint, I can't remember, published quite a few of these books by these guys. This is the first book from the Obscure City series, and this was a Kickstarter maybe last year or earlier this year, and now it appears here. 9 by 12, 96 pages, $35, so you're paying for it. But these are really good comics and really beautiful comics. And I would say maybe check something out, but I don't know how easy it is to find the other books. Hopefully not too hard, since it wasn't that long ago that they were reprinted, but yeah, these guys haven't had a ton of success in English language reprints, unfortunately. All right. From Anthology Editions, a company I'm not familiar with, Brian Blomerth's Lily Wave. Blomerth has had 2 books, Bicycle Day and Mycelium Wasoni, if I'm saying those correctly. Really hard to explain his style. Really interesting cartoonist, though. And if you've ever heard him interviewed, he's very, very funny. Seems to have a really captivating personality. Not something you usually say about cartoonists, but a really talented cartoonist. His books are just visually just very rich. So anyway, new book by him. Yeah, from Anthology Editions, who I've never heard of. From Antarctic, a company that I rarely mention. I used to mention them when Gold Digger was counting down to 300, but that's come and gone. Magical Sisters Digest. This is just a digest paperback story and art by Toshio Maeda, and he is the creator of Legend of the Overfiend. If you've I believe that was turned into an anime, but the manga is seriously fucked up. It's very fucking hardcore, and this looks pretty wholesome by comparison. It does say mature, it does say adult content, so clearly there's some naughty stuff going on. Some shirts are slipping down here. So anyway, I'm pretty intrigued by this, because compared to Legend of the Overfiend, this looks like Archie. So yeah, I'm intrigued by that. From our friends at Fantagraphics. It's a good month for Fanta in the Diamond catalog. Atlas Artist Edition number 2, Al Williamson, The City That Time Forgot and Other Stories. So the first Atlas Artist Edition was Joe Maneely, the Marvel artist who died too young. This one is Al Williamson. The Atlas stories collectively are the largest single body of work Williamson would ever do as a primary creator for one company, which I found pretty interesting. 10 by 13.8, nice big book. $125, which is a hefty fucking price tag. I think the Maneely book was $75. So, that's pretty hefty. 448 pages. I think that's a lot bigger than the Maneely book was. Al Williamson, fantastic artist. And it's, unfortunately, there just isn't a ton of his work available. Can't speak to the quality of the stories. It doesn't even say who wrote any of this stuff. But I'm going to guess that they're all drawn pretty fucking well. So anyway, I thought I'd mention it. That is a hefty price tag, but anyone who's a Williamson appreciator, there you go. From Sunday Press via Fantagraphics. Jimmy, the comic art of James Swinnerton. Edited by Peter Maresca and Michael Tisserand. Essay by Eddie Campbell. That's an all-star lineup right there. James Swinnerton was for years on that list of cartoonists that people wanted a reprint by, and there just has been nothing. And now there is. So, the Sunday Press books are so good. They're so well made. They're all beautiful. They don't all have sterling content, but when they have something great, it's just presented so well. It's hard for me to make a sell on this because I don't really know Swinnerton's work. I've seen just small samples, but I'm very intrigued to see what this book looks like. 13 by 19, beautiful hardcover. Can't recommend these books enough if you ever get a chance just to look at them. The very first titles that Sunday Press put out were Little Nemo books. It is the best way to look at Little Nemo, bar none. And so I'm just excited that Sunday Press is still going under Fanta's umbrella. Very happy about that. Another Carl Barks book, Donald Duck, Frozen Gold. They have been doing the Barks Duck comics out of order. So this is actually volume 2 of Donald Duck. So very early Barks work, which means they're getting near the end. I think they're doing the very beginning and the very end, kind of cycling through those here. So we're within a few books of that library being complete, which is an immense achievement. Joe Galaxy by Massimo Mattioli, the same guy who did Squeak the Mouse. Squeak the Mouse is famously the inspiration for Izzy and Scratchy on The Simpsons. I don't know anything about Joe Galaxy, so we'll see. It's a soft cover, 196 pages, full color, 8.5 by 11.5. So Squeak the Mouse is a lot of fun, though, so I'll be curious to see what this looks like. World Within the World, collected mini comics and short works by 2012 to 2022 by Julia Gafforer, if I'm saying her name correctly. She's published, I believe, 3 slim books through Fantagraphics, all of which go out of print quickly. She's also produced quite a bit of mini comics work. That's what this is collecting. 336 pages. A 2-color hardcover. I will admit her books don't do a lot for me. I think they're good. I don't think they're brilliant, but she definitely has a distinct style, a distinct point of view, a distinct voice. And I'm happy to see this book is going to exist. That's great. Tell Me a Story Where the Bad Girl Wins, The Life and Art of Barbara Sherman. This is a book, not a comic book. Nonfiction by Caitlin McGurk. Caitlin McGurk, I'm going to forget her actual title, but she works at the Billy Ireland Museum at Ohio State University. I have seen a bit of this book just on a screen, and it looks fantastic. I was not familiar with Barbara Sherman at all. She was a New Yorker cartoonist, really nice looking work, and it's great that she is being celebrated and kind of brought back in this way. Mythologies and Apocrypha #2 by Tim Lane. First issue is great. I love Tim Lane's work. It's so nice to see a second issue coming this quickly. Kind of thought maybe we'd go a few years before we saw another one. It's just a regular comic book. And so if you want to sample him, it's pretty easy to do so here. Anyway, fantastic artist. Amazing craft. From Floating World. In the Garden of Earthly Delights by Rich Tommaso. Looks like this is the debut novel with the dynamic duo Trina and Dina. So looks like it's kind of a old school mystery book. That's the idea, done as a comic. I like Rich Tommaso. Don't love him, but I do like his work. Had no idea this book was going to exist. He's been working on... Damn, I can't remember what that book's called. But he's been putting out something else through Floating World. And so a new book, $12, 88 pages. Yeah, good cartoonist, though. He's had an interesting career. I admire the fact that he's been able to stick around as long as he has. He's been working for a very, very long time. Not easy in this world. From Oni, The Damned Deluxe Omnibus Edition. There were 3 volumes of The Damned. I think there was 3 miniseries. Okay. There's a miniseries and there was a Damned series that ran for 10 issues. I've read this stuff. I like it. Written by Cullen Bunn, art and cover by Brian Hurt. They would go on to do The Sixth Gun, which was much more successful and long-lasting. This is sort of like gangsters mixed with magic, which, that description would turn me off. I think if I hadn't read Sixth Gun, I would not have checked this out. But I remember enjoying it. It's been a while. Didn't blow me away by any means, but I remember thinking it was pretty fun. Tomorrow's has an interesting thing this month. At least interesting to me and a couple people I know. Back issue number 157, Keith Giffen tribute issue. Really excited to see this is happening. I love Keith Giffen's work, and when he passed away, I was surprised and gratified at how many people had an outpouring of affection for him. Looks like there's going to be talks with Carrie Bates, Tom Bierbaum, J.M. DeMatteis, Dan Didio, Robert Loren Fleming, Cully Hamner, Scott Koblish, Paul Levitz, Kevin McGuire, Bart Sears, Mark Waid, and more. That's fantastic. That's a hell of a lineup of people that worked with Giffen and knew Giffen. Yeah, he had such a long career, an interesting career. Also from tomorrow's Comic Book Creator number 37. Looks like it's a focus on Steve Englehart. Not a writer who I've ever had much affection for, but you keep an open mind. You know, you're always willing to revisit people's work and see what you might think of it. And Comic Book Creator, I think, is a really, really good magazine. I'm glad it exists. From Uncivilized, The Adventures of Munich in Marcel Duchamp by Roman Muradov. Muradov has been published by, I think, Fantagraphics. I'm trying to remember who else. Really interesting, unique style, very designy, not in a bad way. And this is a new graphic novel from Uncivilized, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'll go ahead and shout this out, even though it's a resolicit. Maple Terrace by Noah Van Sciver, collecting a 3-issue series, which I thought was a lot of fun. And a couple people I know who are younger than me seem to really relate to it. Noah is, I'm not sure how much younger he is than I am, but he's definitely like a elder millennial type. And a couple other people who are in that exact same time frame, were kids at the same time reading these comics, really enjoyed this series. So it's definitely a easy read if you want to give Noah Van Sciver's work a try. From the world of manga, there was only one book that I wrote down. Trillion Game, Volume 2. Talked about Volume 1, I believe, last month. The reason it's interesting to me is the art by Ryoichi Ikegami, a guy who had a ton of his work published here in the States back when manga was first coming over in the 80s and 90s, but when there wasn't a huge audience for it. But he has a sort of Western style, for lack of a better word. A lot of sinewy muscles in action. And then there hasn't been much of his work that's been available at all. So it's exciting to see this series come about. I haven't even seen the first book yet, so who knows how that is. But anyway, interesting. And I'm going to give it a try just based on liking his old work on Crying Freeman. His other series are slipping my mind at the moment, but Crying Freeman for sure. That's it for this month. I felt like it wasn't a huge month of stuff, but some pretty solid books in there. And if I missed anything, or if I did not give something its proper due, feel free to leave a comment. Questions, concerns, complaints, drop a comment. Let me know what you think. All right. I'll see you guys later. Thanks.